All right, hi everybody. Thanks for logging on to the second virtual adult summer reading event with the Belgrade Community Library. This is the Legendary Creatures Lecture with Elies Adams, and she is the founder and president of the Bozeman Paranormal Society.
Hi.
This event is generously sponsored by the Belgrade Community Library Foundation. And my name is Sarah. I'm the Adult Services Librarian with the Belgrade Community Library. And this program is presented by Bozeman Paranormal Society, and we're thrilled to have Elies with us. So just a few housekeeping things. I am going to keep participants muted if they're not asking a question, and their videos turned off, since this is going to be recorded and shared on the library's YouTube channel and on the Bozeman Paranormal Society's social media pages as well. But feel free to interrupt and ask questions, and I'll let Elies take it away now.
So, hello. So my name's Elies, like she said. I've been running this ghost hunting group here for 8 years now. We are a nonprofit, and yeah, so I thought we would discuss some legendary monsters today, and I thought I would start out by asking, what would you guys like to talk about before I go off on a list? Or what do we, just asking you guys what you would like to talk about. And if there is nothing that you guys specifically want to talk about, like in legendary monsters, then I will just go off on my list. But feel free to ask me questions or talk about or bring up like theories on each of the monsters that you think. And yeah, so the first one, of course, I'm going to talk about is ghosts, which is really what my group does. As a ghost hunting group, we really, go to these wonderful old buildings and cemeteries and old places and go ghost hunting. And pretty much ghosts are what they think are just energy. And that's one of the theories. They just think it's an energy based, and based off of also EMF, which is electromagnetic field, is what some of our pieces of equipment that we use. Actually, I could bring up some pieces of equipment. Hold on. And then, like this guy is my newest piece of equipment, and he's a Mel meter, and he also takes EMF and temp. So usually also spirits are about 10 degrees colder than the area, is what they say is theory based. And they also are based off of EMF, which is what I said is electromagnetic field. Well, with ghosts, they always think that they're just, translucent creatures that are scary. Well, to me, I think that they're just people and that died, and they're just trying to get some answers, or just tell us that they like living in that building, or they're trying to find out more about why they're still here, or some unfinished business, or just tell us the history of where they live, which is pretty much what our group likes to do, is try to tie in history with the ghosts. So yeah. But this guy, I'm gonna turn him on. He's really cool. So I just bought this last month, and you're not gonna be. Oh, I guess you will see. So how it kind of zeroes into like 0.0. Well, you're looking for that 0.1, which could be this computer right here. Yep. So, and you're trying to get to it to spike. So you're hoping that spirit will come up to it and spike that number. So, but I thought I'd kind of bring up, that's kind of what we do as a ghost hunting group. but they also wonder why ghosts like coming out at night. Well, I honestly think that ghosts come out at all types of the day and all types all the time, from day to night. And but it's because some of our pieces of equipment, like night vision cameras, it's easier to record a spirit with sometimes with night vision, it seems like. So that's why we end up doing some night investigations, but I do them all the time. I do them during the day and night. So, because I've caught some pretty good evidence just in broad daylight. But sometimes it's because certain pieces of equipment catch better evidence in the evening than they do in the day. And I also think that some ghost hunters think it's extra spooky at night when you see something lurking around. I think it's scarier to see something in broad daylight because you don't expect it. So that's why. So yeah. Why does it look like we have more than? Oh, anyways. So.
Have you ever experienced like a aggressive spirit or entity on your investigations, like one that was maybe like shoved you or something like that?
Yes, I have. This actually brings up a recent investigation. When we went to the Dumas brothel in Butte, and this happened in June because we ended up helping this with a Chris Fisk event in Butte, and he's a big historian in Butte. And we did haunted history days, and we're down in the Dumas brothel. We're sitting in the basement, and something like touched me, not just, and it felt very like harassing kind of in a way. It felt just like it was just trying to feel every part of me from head to toe just to figure out what I am. And then what scared me was when my member James kept going, "Don't turn around." And then I'm like, why? And then later on, he told me it's because it looked like this big black figure was standing right behind me, like 2 inches behind me. And it did not feel very nice. And I felt very aggressive related. Most spirits mostly touch me in the hair, on my hair. I've never physically been pushed, but I have been touched to the point where I felt uncomfortable. And I know that spirit was not right. This brings up that, why I feel that way is because I'm an empath, so I can feel energies that are related to what's going on. Nowadays, I can even pinpoint where spirits are. So, yeah. So.
That is crazy that happened to you.
It was really creepy. I mean, I've never had an experience of being fully touched like that before. It was not fun. It was fun, but not, you know what I mean.
Well, that's cool how you still kind of like went on with your investigation, even though that kind of happened.
Oh, we were like hoping because we also had another ghost hunting group here that was doing recording in the basement there. We're hoping that they caught all of that on camera, because as ghost hunters, it doesn't matter how scared you are, you really are hoping that you're catching that evidence. So apparently my hair gets picked up at one point, and at that point I'm facing a camera, so we're hoping that group caught that on camera because it was really spooky. So
that'd be awesome if you did get it on camera. Creepy, but awesome.
Yeah, that's just kind of how ghost hunting is. You just get really excited about that, and then yeah. So that's kind of like the basics of what ghost hunting is and how some of the theories are of ghost hunting and whatnot. But is there any other questions?
That was one of the main ones I came up with.
And then at the end, we can if we have time, we can go see if you guys have any other questions as well. So Bigfoot, yes, we're going to mention Bigfoot, and apparently everybody knows what he looks like. He's a big hairy person thing with big feet. So, and I guess they think that it says that Bigfoot researchers claim that there is quite a bit of physical evidence, but there's really not enough where it's like they don't have like a blood sample or like saliva or anything to really say it's like a real thing or, you know, at all. So, and even places that there's like this guy that's in Idaho State University who has been trying to find solid evidence for him, because this side of the country gets a lot of sightings for Bigfoot, apparently. I guess for us, it's Bear Canyon and the Highlight Reservoir area. So, but yeah, and they apparently the folklore of Bigfoot and Sasquatch are that he's a big hairy person, a character that's upright walking, ape-like creature that dwells in the wilderness and leaves footprints. Well, all we have is really footprints. We don't really even have fur, so it's very much a theory-based thing. They're not really sure what he is. Actually, I attended a Bigfoot convention. It's weird when ghost hunters go to Bigfoot conventions because they're mostly just there for Bigfoot. They don't really want to listen to ghost hunters. But we went there to support and we talked about our group and whatnot. They're really cool people, though. Hearing about some of the theories is apparently they think that he's an alien. I don't know what. I had to watch a documentary on this. So, and that's why we get sometimes UFO sightings is because of Bigfoot. So that's what they think. Also, my theory, which I think makes complete sense. You guys probably think I'm crazy, but I do just talk to ghosts. And is he can go between dimensions, and this is why we don't have solid evidence to tell you that he's there, because he could go between dimensions, meaning he's not going to be able to leave like solid, things like blood or saliva or even patches of fur, because he could just disappear in an instant. Because they always say that even ghosts are dimensional plane creatures. So why can't Bigfoot be that way? Because there's many dimensions and he can definitely disappear. And I feel like he's maybe a more intelligent being than people really think he is. So that apparently there's so many sightings of Bigfoot in the state of Montana that they even have a website. So on here, I even linked what I'm bringing up today, because it does have extra information on each of the legendary monsters I'm talking about. And it also brings up some websites that you can look up per state to see where the sightings are of certain legendary monsters. So if you do check that out, it's a pretty interesting site. I have checked it out a couple times. One of the most recent sightings of this is Glacier National Park and Kalispell. So there's even a group out in Livingston that goes Bigfoot hunting. So I can tell you, those people are way braver than ghost hunters. Because they go out in these wilderness places in the middle of the night sometimes and take these cameras. And I've heard stories where they've been like chased down by moose or chased down by cougar. So, but they're pretty impressive with their equipment. And I thought that ghost hunting groups have great equipment. It's Bigfoot that has really great equipment. So, but there is a group out in Livingston that does this, and also in Cody, Wyoming. That's, yeah, next to the lady that runs this in Hamilton, Montana.
Elise, I have a question. What is the difference between Bigfoot and Sasquatch?
Well, it looks like on here, it's not much of a difference, because it even says that Bigfoot or Sasquatch, I guess they could be related. I mean, my theory would be they could be a related species. You know how would make sense. It's like bringing up the Yeti. Maybe they're all related in some sense, and they are all, yeah.
No, that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, I just wasn't sure.
So, because they all look the same in a way. Anyways, does anybody have questions on that?
Where was that Bigfoot convention at that you went to?
It was in Hamilton, Montana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know if they do it anymore, because that was like that 1 year. I should find out more if they do it. But yeah, it was an interesting thing. I did met some really great people. So, and hear about different things that people think that Bigfoot is. But yeah.
You also mentioned that some famous sightings around Bozeman was like in Highlight Canyon, like near the reservoir, which coincidentally I'm going up there this weekend to do some like inner tubing and powder birding and stuff.
Yeah, now you'll have to see if you see Bigfoot. So I'm pretty sure, out of all the things is thinking about Bigfoot, I don't, if it was, if I am thinking of him being she is being a interdimensional person, creature, I would feel like it would be a very nice being, So.
As long as you don't make it mad, it'll probably be pretty nice of you.
And just view it from a distance and try not to go chase them. So, but yeah, anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Yes, we're going to mention the Flathead Monster. And so the Flathead Monster, the first sighting actually happened in 1889. And after that, it had 79 accounts of this large object that has been documented, which actually I did reference the website and a YouTube thing about the sightings and whatnot. Most of the 92% of the observations have been occurring during the month of April through September. So most of the objects that that are been frequent, 70%, have described it that it's a large eel. This is pretty much kind of what I would feel like it would look like, that this picture here. And the length is even between 20 to 40 feet. and it is apparently round with blue to brown, black in its color, and possess obviously black eyes and whatnot. So I've never met anybody that's seen the Flathead Monster, but I've heard stories that about it, and how sometimes they think maybe it's related to the dinosaur. It's like a dinosaur type being. They also think it might be as identified as a large fish from 6 to 10 feet long. Yeah, and then apparently says, but yeah, I honestly think he's a dinosaur. And we haven't had very many recent sightings of it as late. So I don't know, maybe it's died off now. I don't know how long dinosaurs are alive till, and I'm, not real too sure about it. I do think it might be related to the Loch Ness Monster, because that's just kind of how it goes. And as you can tell, actually, they have not had any recent Loch Ness Monsters occurrences as of late. And the apparently reports of the Loch Ness Monster are notable around the local stone carvings by this mysterious pick. So apparently they have seen, like, the Loch Ness Monster dates back to that far behind. So from even like it looks like 565 AD, which makes sense because I really think that the Loch Ness Monster and the Flathead Monster are related or close to it. So, and they might be completely different species. I mean, I don't know, so, but apparently many of these alleged encounters seem to inspire a lot of Scottish folklore, which makes it, makes it very much a mythical type water creature. In 1933, the Loch Ness Monster legend began to grow, and at the time, the road adjacent to the Loch Ness Monster finished, offered an obstruct view of the lake. And in April, a couple saw an enormous animal, which they compared to a dragon, which that's another good theory, is it could be, the Loch Ness Monster could be a dragon-based creature as well. But yeah, what do you guys think the Loch Ness Monster is?
I've looked into this quite a bit, and there's a huge variation between some of the sightings. And I don't know, some could be a misidentification, while others could be maybe a large fish or something. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, that's why they're in. It's same with like the Flathead Monster. There's not as much solid evidence. That every article I looked up, it just seemed like a bunch of, they're not sure what it is, like, so it sounds like you're just reading a bunch of nonsense a little bit because they're just so confused on what they're seeing. And like the Loch Ness Monster is the same thing. It's just like, yeah, this is the sightings, but they're not sure if it's a real thing or if it's just a tourist trap. It could be a tourist trap. And yeah, but it could honestly be a dinosaur. I honestly think if the Loch Ness Monster and the Flathead Monster is still alive, that would be amazing. Because that would be one old creature. Because how many sightings have been around for the Loch Ness Monster said, wasn't it like 1930s? And then like the Flathead Monster was 1889. So you have to think, how long does a being that maybe a dinosaur would live? So, but yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Just as a time check, we're about halfway through for our
Yeah.
timing.
And then this one's going to be the longest one. So fairies. So I think I'm going to start out. What do you guys think a fairy is? And then also, so my theory is a fairy is a form of elemental. So an elemental is a forest type spirit, or like if you go out to, oh, I'm just gonna keep using highlight, and how peaceful it is out there, and whatnot. And you kind of notice that, and sometimes you don't always hear the road. They always say it's an elemental that keeps the calmness of the area and maintains the forest type things, like, we're just going to use, if anybody's watched My Neighbor Totoro, he's a forest spirit. So, and how he makes the trees grow. Well, fairies are supposed to be kind of like making the flowers grow and making sure that the grass is growing. And that's what they say is a fairy. It's a elemental type creature, that also is a like this picture of a look human based creature with wings. They're not normally very nice looking, but they're, if you can pay them respects, they'll be just as nice as to you. If you don't pay them respects and you kind of treat them not that great, they will actually treat you the same way. They're not very nice. I have ran into several elementals that will treat you kind of like a demon would. So, and it's not very nice. So pretty much they just they help with the forest and the earth and whatnot. So with the pixelation, pretty much like with fairies now, is that, we think about like Tinkerbell or, stuff like that, where it's like they look like a human, and they're supposed to be really close to being like a human. And some can also appear to be wearing human clothes. Some of them will be appearing to be not wearing human clothes. It's just kind of naked. Also, that apparently the term fairy goes back to the Middle Ages in Europe, and they apparently vary in different forms, both written and literature, from even all the way to the Greek mythology, to the common, more types of children's stories. But apparently I was reading about how this like fairy usually conceived as being a characteristically beautiful and handsome, and have lives corresponding to those of human beings, though longer. They have no souls, and at death they simply perish. They often carry off children and leaving changeling substitutes, and they also carry off adults to fairyland. But yeah, and this also goes into different religion-based things as well. So fairies have gone around in all different lore for several times, and I really do believe that they're a elemental type being. So yeah, but what do you guys think?
I think fairies are kind of like elementals, like they're tied to like the animals, the forest and stuff like that. Like they help to like protect it and nurture it. And I kind of thought how there's a lot of depictions of them in like more human forms. I was thinking maybe in some way they could sense that someone is very pure and like innocent at heart and soul and they mean well. So maybe they just appear in certain ways to like influence them to do good, or if someone is like seeking ill intentions, they turn human to try to draw them away so they can't cause harm to whatever it is they're like protecting or living in.
Which would make sense. That would I like that theory of a fairy. That's a really good idea. Really good theory. And then I'm also going to mention types of fairies. Um, and the first one's a dwarf, which actually surprised me when I looked this up on uh, like a website. I would never think a dwarf was a type of fae because I never really thought of that. And um, with like the Lord of the Rings theory book series. He's a very humanoid race of Norse mythology, and he's a hairy, short person. And they're always known to be in mines and mining gold, and always being very into the gold-related things. And yeah, I also always think that the women should have beards. It just makes more sense because they always seem to be kind of that way, I guess. But that's just me. Um, and then, but yeah, um, any thoughts on dwarfs? Because it's very small, little. The dwarf is pretty self-explanatory usually, and they're usually used for battle most of the time. Well, I guess we'll go to our next one, which is an elf. Oh, I like that elf picture. It has horns for some. That's awesome. Anyways, also elves, which are actually in a lot, you either have the little Christmas elves that are really tiny. Well, a lot of folklore always thinks that elves are really tall, majestically beautiful beings, just like a fairy. So, and some of them I've heard theories in other books where they have some sorts of magical powers that are different than the normal person that is like a wizard. So, and they always are good at, usually I heard a lot of, especially like Lord of the Rings, where they're more an like a lot of archers and whatnot. And yeah, so they're one of my favorite folklore. So, and our next one we will go to, unless anybody has any questions, is a gnome. Oh, I really need to get a gnome. Anyways, did you know that I like gnomes because They're supposed to be a good luck charm usually. Even these little guys here, if you put them in like your garden, it's supposed to help the garden grow. That's like a theory. Um, and gnomes are also introduced in the Renaissance folklore. And modern garden gnomes are usually small with pointy hats, but also gnomes. If you ever read Harry Potter, are gross little creatures that will bite you, and they're not good for your garden because they destroy it. So, man, I like that prediction. What I think a gnome looks like, I like those. But yeah, um, they're also dwarf-like fairies. They're very small in folklore as well, and legendary monster related. But yeah, also a form of elemental as well. Like I remember that's something that I know that it's also like a related to like a fairy. It is it helps. It's like what fairies do. Like I said with the garden, it helps your garden grow. So it is a form of elemental. They're usually really small. They're like this small, and you'll see them around, and they don't look like that. So yeah. Now you can turn it to the next one. Okay. Goblins, which are always just scary looking creatures. And they also, I've heard, is a form of an elemental as well. And usually they usually hide in caves and are usually cave dweller creatures like dwarfs and brownies, which are a form of fae. And it's kind of related to the goblin, I think, is what a brownie is. I've done very little research on brownies, but that's what I am assuming it is. And they're usually really small, like a goblin as well. And usually goblins are just nasty. They usually always have to have a master, and they're usually they like to be thieves. They love thieving people. So, yeah. So, any questions so far?
Whenever I hear like brownies and goblins, it makes me think of the Spiderwick Chronicles movie that came out in, what was it, like 2006 or something like that. It just
Yeah,
makes me think of that.
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. So, yeah, and you don't usually hear brownies more than you would hear a goblin. And now thinking about that movie, yeah, I think that's the only reference of a movie, and also I think that's a book. Um,
I think it's a book too. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I've seen it before.
yeah, I think that's the only book and series, and I don't think it's a series. I'm gonna go back with that. I think it is, and then movie that it has a brownie in it because they're usually not referenced that often. So yeah. Okay, we can.
Yeah, Spiderwick Chronicles, just the librarian piping in here. It is a series of books. And the movie came out, I think, in 2008. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Thank
I was 2 years off.
I know you did very good. That was a really good guess. But yeah, there's at least 5 books in the series. They came out in the early 2000s. So,
I'll
I
show
might have to read them then.
that shows how much I know what books have. Yeah, how many books I read a lot of books, but yeah. Anyways, I never heard of that series until now. So the Leprechaun, which is also a part of the Fae, which actually surprised me too. And he's usually very short and humanoid. And I always think every time you think of it's very more stereotypical now of a leprechaun is he's a short man that loves to drink alcohol, and he's always at the end of a rainbow and giving and tricking you on his gold. And yeah, so usually he's always wearing this typical type of outfit as well. And well, I love the theory when I'm gonna keep referencing Harry Potter. I am sorry. And when the twins get leprechaun gold and how it disappears, I totally think if you found a pot of gold, that's exactly what would happen. So, and because I feel like leprechauns are not going to be nice and just be like, let's just give them free gold. That's just not gonna. I feel like that's not gonna fly very well. So, but I wonder if I wonder if anybody's ever went to an end of a rainbow and actually saw a pot of gold. So, I've never been to the end of the rainbow before. But yeah, we can go to that. Yeah. Yes, we brought up the orc, which is not a nice creature at all. They're always, that and trolls are normally not nice at all. They usually are used for army related causes. And an orc, the orcs were bred from elvish stock by the Dark Lord Morgoth. And because apparently I'm reading this from Tolkien's writings, because they're based off of, originally they started to come around when Tolkien started to write his Middle Earth type stories back in the day, and then that's when it kind of branched off where we got the orcs. And then they always have pointy ears like an elf, and otherwise they're completely different from their ancestors. They were ruined and terrible and have been an evil form of life. And they usually are considered fairies because of their relations to the elves, and because goblins in Tolkien's writing was the name of an underground breeds of orc. So usually that's why, which is very fascinating. I didn't even know this until I read this yesterday, that the orc is related to the elves. I did not know that. It just shows you how much I really read up on orcs. But yeah. I guess we can.
What would you say orcs are like associated with? Like, I don't know, like elemental wise, like, I don't know, like living in like dark caves or like mountains or something like that.
Would be an elemental of like a mountain or a cave. That would make sense, because that would be, because usually mountain elementals and cave elementals are like a goblin. So it wouldn't be surprising that an orc would be a larger version of an elemental. So I would, yeah.
Yeah, they just seem like the type of creature that would be kind of associated with in some way because of how like big and kind of burly they are. I don't know, that's just kind of how I associate them with.
I would associate that as well. So that would make sense. I would agree with that as well. And yeah. So Sprite, which is also thinking about elementals right now, the Sprite is totally an elemental, and it's a real elemental. I've actually encountered this version of a elemental. So out of all of the mythical creatures that you think of, next to a ghost isn't a mythical creature. but this is probably the closest thing that you're ever going to get to for a fae. So, and run into often. And usually it's like an elf-like creature that also looks like it's part of nature. So, and it does help the plants grow as well. So, yeah. Uh-oh. But yeah, so that's kind of, I'm like, okay, there we go. I lost my place, and then I was like, oh no. That's how it goes for me. And then, oh man, I keep losing my place. This is how it goes at the end. Yeah. Trolls. You know, when you first showed me this picture, I could not see the troll until now. And then, so trolls, which I also think is an elemental, and is a more mountainous type of elemental, and goes back to Norse mythology. And they turn into stone and blow up things, blow up on exposure of sunlight. This is why he would definitely, if definitely be more of a cave dwelling elemental. They are usually like to reside in caves and mountains and dense forests. And usually they guard passageways and waterways and bridges. So it's definitely, you know, like they're not very nice to come across either, and they always put out negative energy. So, but yeah, they're very protective. And pixies, which are small, childish, and often mischievous fairies that orient in Celtic mythology. And also, did you know that this is what Tinkerbell is based off of? Is a pixie more than a fairy. So, which would make sense because they're very tinier than a fairy. So, yeah. That's all I have for that one. Next is mermaids. So, you know, well, mermaids are a mythical dwelling creature that is often described as like a woman or beautiful person with a tail, like a fish-like tail. And usually there's two types of mermaids. They usually they say that they're a beautiful creature that has a tail, and then there's also the theory that it is a scary creature that is trying to make ships crash into rocks, which that's where sirens come from. So they'll sing and then make them crash into rocks, and they think that that's related to what the mermaid is. But then they also say that mermaids are very beautiful and they are very good luck if you do see them as well. And then apparently stories of mermaids have existed for thousands of years and spanned with cultures across the world and form coastal settlements in Ireland all the way to the deserts in South Africa. So apparently the English term to mermaid is maid, a woman with a tail, pretty much is what that would be. But yeah, the symbolization of mermaids, they are very with such a rich and variety history. The symbol of mermaid is changeable as a sea itself. And a lot of people really like looking at mermaids, as you can tell, to the point where they even attached them to their boats. That's where they were hoping that when they attached it to their boats, that it would give them good luck on their sailing point. So, but yeah, does anybody have any theories to maybe some of the mermaid related things before I go off on a tangent? Okay. Okay. So we're going to wrap it up with the dragons. So dragons, I'm just going to give you my theory on dragons. So I always thought that if dragons were real, they had to be a form of a dinosaur. And as you can tell, that, well, there is a dragon that's real. It's the kimono dragon. And it has, you know, the bacteria that kills people and things. Well, with this dragon that we're looking at, it can breathe fire. So I do believe maybe that could have been a thing back in the dinosaur era, and you could really breathe. They could really breathe fire, and there's multiple like cultures that believe in dragons, from the Japanese and the Chinese, who do make big celebrations with their dragons. And even in the Japanese culture, they love even talking about how wizards and dragons get along. So, and that they are one. But sometimes they would talk about how wizards could turn into dragons, and it's another form of changing as well. So, honestly, I really think that dragons, if they were real, they were a dinosaur at some point, and they're no longer a thing. Now they're just a myth. But apparently, also, yeah. So, does anybody have any questions for me? I was trying to kind of the last two ones kind of shortening them because I know we're running out of time. Before I list off some books. And as you can tell, dragons are a big part of our culture, to even TV shows, movies, books. The Hobbit is a good book. I can tell you, I'm going to probably keep referencing Harry Potter and to Lord of the Rings all day. And even like Dragon Tales, which was a TV show. Oh man, there are so many things with dragons now. I even watched this show that was called, I'm not going to even try to remember now. And it's on Netflix, and it's about this kid that helps the last form of all of the dragons still be alive. So, but yeah, anyways, is there anything else you guys want to talk about for the last couple minutes?
This isn't about dragons, but I was wondering if you have ever encountered a demon, since you mentioned it during fairies.
Yes, I have encountered a demon. Oh man, that was a long time ago. And I've actually encountered quite a few demons. I have a lady in my group, her name is Janet, and she's our demonologist. So usually when we have a very scary investigation, she comes with me. And this was before I met her. And the first time I encountered a demon was in this person's house, and the person's kid was being possessed by a demon, and they were smelling sulfur in their room. which was a total demon related thing. The kid it was only like 3 years old. It didn't even know how to use a cell phone, and picked up the cell phone up, and in the middle of the night she showed us these like recordings of the kid just like talking gibberish into the recorder, and then one of the recordings was like, "I'm gonna burn the house down," and I walked in and it was so heavy, and I guess the little kid would get up in the middle of the night to try to wake up the other little kid, because that's what demons do. They try to keep everybody awake and make them really tired so they can feed off of them and their nightmares. So it was very scary, but apparently we dealt with it. We got him at the time when I didn't know Janet. I got him very good help. And apparently a priest came in and helped them, and it seemed to work for them. And now that I invite her in, she can see them. So usually she's would call in for her angels and help with that. So yeah. So like sometimes we'll come in, she'll tell us that it's like a lower level demon. And then if it's a higher level demon, she actually has to come in and ask for help, like ask another person in her that knows how to deal with demons. So yeah.
That is something else.
Incredible.
Incredible. I'm speechless at that.
Yeah, it is pretty intense. So, but anyways, is there any other questions or want to ask me? Or I tried to do this as best as I could.
I think you did a great job, Elise. I think you covered a lot of detail about a lot of different things. I learned a lot, at least.
I would have probably put more detail in the dragon and the mermaid thing, and then I realized what time it was. So I was like, okay, we're just going to talk a little bit about this and then go from there. So, cool. But yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you did. I think we lost Zoom will kick people off of here. So yeah, I have a feeling that's what happened. So, but anyways, any other questions from you, Sarah?
No, I think you covered what I wanted to hear, and I thought Maggie Jo had some good questions. So, yeah.
Maggie Jo, do you have any other questions?
Not really.
Oh, so did I cover everything I could possibly cover?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, for an hour, I think you did awesome, Elise.
Awesome. I'm glad to be part of this. We'll have to do something in the fall that's like this.
Yeah, I'd like that. Yeah.
Also, I'll reference some of the books on here so that before you close this off, so you can share it and they have at least the book part. So for dragons, I put the Dragon and Thief, the Dragon's Treasure, Tea with the Black Dragon, the Dragon Holder, the Iron Dragon's Daughter, the Spell Singer, A Song of Ice and Fire series, His Majesty the Dragon, The Hobbit, and that's for that. Let me get up here and do the mermaid here really quick. And the mermaids is Catching a Mermaid by James Clark Hook. See some of them, I couldn't get all the authors. And then Franz Franken, which is a a ledgership of state. And then that's all I got for the mermaid thing, besides me doing, besides that. And then when I get all the way up here, books for ghosts is Haunted Montana by Karen Sieben. And also I'm going to reference the Spirit Tailings by Ellen Balmer. And then
I have a couple of those books.
yes, and I'm friends with both of them. So this is what I do. I try to reference friends' books. And then Rusty Wilson's Montana Bigfoot Camp Stories is for Bigfoot Catching the Flathead Monster by Chris DeVore. And for fairies, apparently did not put anything. Of course not. So that's pretty much the book listing I got to at least put for most of the things. But yeah, that should cover a pretty good chunk of that.
Yeah, and the library did buy some books related to most of the topics Elise covered today. You can just search our catalog for whatever the creature is, and it'll bring up whatever we own as well as other Gallatin County libraries. And if you have a Belgrade library card, you should be able to put holds on anything as long as it's not new for other libraries. Like if they mark it as new, we can't necessarily share it, but you can like add it to a list so you can kind of keep an eye on it when it's not new. Or if it's something you think that the Belgrade library should buy, we're always open to that as well. So
Awesome.
I'm gonna stop the recording.
That's good, because I think that's all the list of books I could think of. So
All right.